Hello, and welcome to Chaos to Clarity, the podcast that's your compass to navigate the exciting world of service-based businesses. If you're a determined woman in your current business adventure, striving to conquer the chaos and build your empire, then you are in the right place. I'm your host, Maggie, your go-to business bestie and chaos navigator. I've spent nearly 2 decades in the service-based industry, building a photography business, a yoga studio, and now a thriving coaching practice. I've cracked the code to consistent income without all the chaos and noise. So get ready to increase your business growth, connect with your ideal clients, and find ease in both business and in life. It's time to turn your frustrations into inspiration and your chaos into clarity. So go ahead and grab your coffee, a pen and paper, and let's dive into the journey of building your dream service-based business together. Are you ready? Let's go. All right. So welcome back to the Chaos to Clarity podcast. My name is Maggie. I am your host. I am your business bestie and your Chaos to Clarity coach. And today on the podcast, I am so excited to have Danielle here with me. So Danielle, I'm going to let you take it away. Let us know who you are, what you do, and how long you've been in business.
Oh boy. Okay, so I'm Danielle Wilson and I am the growth alchemist. And what that means is that I help you take the lead out of your business, excuse me, and turn it into gold, basically. The method I use is to examine your business's performance so far and to identify the key areas that you can grow, basically. So, most people have either a leads problem or a sales problem, but that's not always the case. And so I try to help you avoid throwing your hard-earned money at investments in your development and your business's growth that actually aren't going to help you move the needle. So that's what I do. And how long have I been in business as the growth alchemist? It's only been about 1.5 years. How long have I been in business? 35 years.
Awesome. I love that so much. I love that so much, right? Because I also, right, like I've owned businesses now for 16 years. And
Yes.
sometimes, even for me, when people are like, well, how long have you been in business? I'm like, which one?
My first business, I was 17 years old. So
Yeah, that's so awesome. I love that. So, what is something challenging that you have overcome in your business? And how did it affect your business?
okay. I think that one of the biggest things that I had to overcome in my business was moving away from um, the mindset of being a leader to a team. That was a
Mm-hmm.
really big one. I've been a leader for 35 years and always had kind of the responsibility for strategic direction of my organizations, but also the emotional safety and wellness of my team, the development of them, all of those things. So it was really challenging for me at first when I started coaching to not take on that same responsibility for
Yeah.
people, to allow people to be accountable for their own selves rather than me like always pushing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was actually probably my biggest challenge that I had to overcome, was to kind of let go a little bit and allow my clients to be sovereign beings.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a big one.
Yeah. And how do you
Yeah.
feel like that affected your business? Like what do you feel like that shifted or changed, right? Like when you noticed it and then when you started to allow that growth, what do you feel like happened for you?
Well, I think two things happened. I think the first thing that happened was while I was still taking that responsibility, I allowed myself to um, place a lot of emphasis on the personal relationship that I felt with people. And so that deep level of caring that I felt for them might have meant I wasn't likely their best fit, but I still wanted to help them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that what it really did for me was it helped me to be more clear on who I can help, right? Who's actually ready to accept my help and take action on it. So that was a really big shift for me, was to realize I'm not for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
that I
Yeah.
can't help everyone, even with the wide breadth of experience and knowledge that I have. Um, I can't. And I think that the other thing was I came out of business as a sales and marketing leader. And so I expected that meant that I needed to take that expertise and funnel that into my business. That's where I needed to focus, but it's not where my passion is.
Mm-hmm.
My passion is actually in the numbers. My passion is in doing that. I'm like a Columbo when it comes to data.
It just gets you so excited. I
It
love
really
that though.
it gets me so
Yeah.
excited. I could spend hours with an Excel spreadsheet just drilling down into the most minute, ridiculous detail to uncover the insights that it gives. But I think that what's unique about me in that way is that each little insight, it's like a chain, right? It's a chain of
Mm-hmm.
insights. And so because I will take that time and I will spend that brain power on it, and it comes easy to me. Numbers are
Mm-hmm.
easy for me. So I think that what that really does is it gives me a better big picture view. So I don't have to be in your business day to day. I can have the 30,000-foot view and be able to see the full picture. So I think that, did I answer your question? Gosh,
Oh
did
yeah.
I?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I love that because I think it's so important. So like when I hear you saying, like you love to drill down into those numbers, most
Yeah,
people are afraid of those numbers, right? And
they
they're
are.
afraid to
You're
look,
right.
whether that is, lead generation, sales, whatever,
Yes.
right? Like wherever numbers used to terrify me. And then like I had to make it a point to like, you have to look at your bank account. You have to look at the numbers, especially insights on social media. Who are you reaching? How are you reaching them? If you are going to connect with people to create sales, you have to create content that person, those people are going to want to interact with. And you need to know, probably need to know their age and demographics and a little bit about
Mhm.
them so that you can say the right things, right? Because if I,
Yeah.
right, like if I use vernacular from 2003 when I was a senior in high school, my people are
Wait,
probably not
what?
well. Yes, I was a
Sorry.
senior in high school in 2003.
Oh, you just made me feel really old.
That was not
Sorry.
intentional. Not intentional.
Wow. Okay,
Bring it
keep going.
back,
Sorry.
right? Bring it back
Woo!
to
Yep, coming back.
2003.
Yeah.
Even
But
back
you're
in the
absolutely
90s,
right.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
absolutely
So
right.
if you're not understanding some of those things and if you're afraid of those things, right, because it's unknown for a lot of
Yeah.
people. For me, that was what it was unknown, and I'm like, ooh, I don't know, and I don't
Yeah.
know how to interpret the data, so I don't know what to do with it. So
Yeah.
someone like you who enjoys the numbers, who enjoys looking at those things and can make sense of it, it's people like you who help people like me feel more comfortable
Yeah.
understanding like, okay, here are a couple metrics that I need to pay attention to, and then we can start growing, right? We can
Yeah.
start doing
Absolutely.
things intentionally to promote connection, conversation, closing
Hmm.
sales, right? Like
Yeah.
that is what you need to
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
You do. It helps you to identify the holes in your bucket, dear Liza,
Mm-hmm.
dear Liza. It
Yeah.
really does. So, you might think that you've got a leads problem. Oh, I'm not getting enough leads. It could be that your leads aren't qualified. So maybe you're failing on sales calls, for bad word, strike failing. Maybe you're not having the kind of success you hoped for on
Right.
sales calls simply because
Yeah.
the people you're bringing in are actually not qualified. If
Mm-hmm.
you can know a little bit more about that, you can then say, okay, so is it the way I'm talking to them? Is it that I'm not saying the things they need to hear? Is that I'm being too general? Like these are the kinds of things that we can uncover, believe it or not, by looking at your numbers. I
Mm-hmm.
can help you to decide, do you need to hire a social media manager or do you need to hire a high ticket closer when you're ready to scale? Like there's so much that the story that it tells, well, that it tells me anyway, can even help you make decisions about, what does this particular member of my team need training on?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like it goes well beyond just how do I get more sales?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, when you're in business, your goal is always, how do I get the most revenue with
Right.
the least amount of time and the least amount of effort and the least amount of investment, because you want the highest, like there's, and everything is interconnected. And I think that's the part that really escapes people. And unless you have done 30 years of data analysis, you might not be able to see those. but 30
Right.
years of managing P&Ls, 30 years of doing category management reports, 30 years of, you know, multi-billion dollars of growth
Mm-hmm.
is where my expertise and knowledge comes from. It didn't come from reading books. Frankly, I don't
Right.
read nonfiction books. Sorry. First time I've admitted that. I don't read nonfiction books. All of my
Yeah.
insights come from my own experience. And I think that we spend a lot of time looking for answers out there when the answers are really in here. And in here can be in your CRM.
Right.
It can
Yes.
be in your professional dashboard on Facebook. It doesn't have when Hermosi hit and all these other ones, the Atomic Habits, and these big trends that people follow. And they're like, oh, there's my golden ticket,
Right.
only to come away no further ahead. It's because you need
Mm-hmm.
to focus in. And when you're in business, in means look at inside your own business, not for what's out there. I talk a lot
Right.
about shiny object syndrome. So
Mm-hmm. And I think that's super important, especially for people who are, just stepping into business where we are sold this big grand picture that, especially in the coaching world, oh, you'll hit six figures in 6 months. No problem. You can do it. High ticket offer, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of people forget to focus inside, right? And business is like 80 to 90% mindset work and like 10 to 20% data. And I don't know that many people could convince me otherwise, right? Because in my own personal experience, yes, I've hired people to help me read the data. But at the end of the day, when it came to taking action, that was my job.
yes.
And I had to get out of my own way. I had to
Yes.
focus inside, right? I had to get out of my own way, focus inside, tell myself, yes, you can do this. Yes, you are doing this. You have done it before. You can do it again. This is not rocket science. You can do this, right? Like
It's like you read my content or something. Like I
I
but it's
have
not
read your
rocket
content.
science.
Right. It's not. And that's one thing I love about the content you put out is that it's very easy to understand, it's relatable, and it's content that's like, okay, brings it back down to earth and it's like, this really isn't that hard. Here are a few cool things. If I have questions, right? Like I can book a
Yeah.
call, right? Or I can
Yeah.
inquire about services or, whatever that may be.
Yes.
And I think
Yeah.
that, especially today where like information is prevalent, there's so much information.
Too much.
Right. Yeah. It's almost information overload. So when you can have someone that can give you insights,
Mhm.
that is it's almost more helpful than information, right? Because you can go to someone and say, here is the data, here are my thoughts, here is this
Mhm.
stuff. Can you help me make sense of it?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other important part of it, though, Maggie, is there is a lot of it that's about you. It is about what are you willing to do? What
Yeah,
are you
that
not
too.
willing to do?
Yep.
So I always ask, so what are your non-negotiables?
Mm-hmm.
What are you willing to do? What are you not willing to do? Those are very important. What are your hopes? What are your fears? What motivates you? What demotivates you?
Yep.
All of those come into play. So it goes, the growth alchemist is, I talk about numbers a lot, but so much more goes into it. It's about who you are as an individual and
Mm-hmm.
who you want to be and where you want to go. So your goals matter just as much, but the mindset part, your willingness, your own personal motivation, those things are critical. I can give you all the insights in the world unless you take action,
Yep.
unless you actually take action. And if you're at that, if say I give you an insight that says to you, you need to, you actually need to stop posting 12 times a day on Instagram because you're actually tanking your reach.
Right.
If I tell you that, you're like, but if I don't, then I'm not. If you have a mindset that automatically dismisses my insight because it is counter to what you believe, how do I'm trying to help you build evidence, but until you change the behavior, you can't build that evidence.
Right.
And I loved what you were saying earlier. You were actually talking about building evidence when you were saying, layering these things onto each other. That's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what we need to do.
Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
need to feel safe to make these moves. If we don't feel safe, we won't do it.
Right. Right. Exactly. And I think, a lot of people, in fact, I had a conversation the other day with a woman who she wanted an offer audit, which is great. I love
Okay.
doing them. Right. So we went through her
Mm-hmm.
offer and she was wanting to pivot. And I said, you have both of these offers are great. Why haven't you started? Why haven't you pivoted? Why? Like, what is holding you back? You literally have everything in place. You have people who follow you. You have people who are in your DMs. You're talking to people. And she's like, yeah, I can't decide. And I said,
Okay.
okay,
Afraid of
that's
making a
great.
mistake.
Right. Yeah. And I'm like, I said, I can give you all the advice you want. We could be on this call for hours. You could pay me. But at the end of the day, if you can't decide to make a move, to take action,
Yeah.
you're going to waste money. And I am here to help you. I want to help you. I know I can help you, but I don't want to take your money if you're not willing to take action, if you're not ready, right? Because if
Yeah.
you're not ready, that's okay. That's okay to not
Yeah.
be ready.
And thank you for saying that, because it is okay.
Mm-hmm.
Too often I hear others saying, you just got to push through it. You just got to, that it's almost like a belittling that happens over not being ready. And
Right.
no, that I can't stand. I call it mean girl syndrome.
Yeah, no,
All
and
that
I
it's like
agree.
bullying, and I hate it. I
Yeah,
hate it.
it
So
is.
I've always been accused of undercharging for what I do, and I'm like, but it's what I want to charge. It has
Right.
nothing to do with my mindset. If
Mm-hmm.
somebody else is at this level, trust me, I've got lots of clients that I say,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, but,
Right.
and so we make a plan for how can they build evidence to feel secure to do that, because I
Right.
think that's what it's all about.
Yes.
You have to have the foundation of belief that it's going to give you what you want. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the big thing, is knowing what it is you want.
Yep.
What is it that you want? And then
Mm-hmm.
how do you, if that's your north, how do you keep coming back to that?
Right. Yes. Yeah. Because the universe is going to do everything in its power to say, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Right. And try and
We
knock
were
you.
just talking
I know
about
we were just
that.
talking about that. Right. But it's true. Like the universe is going to give you challenges. It's also going to give you gifts, and it's going to say, oh, okay. Like just recently, yesterday, I had a meeting with one of the local companies. They want to bring me on for a huge photography project.
Nice.
And it's stemming into, like documentation creation as well as like support for their
Nice.
team,
Real
which is
SOP. Okay.
so amazing. Something I used to do in my corporate life. And, I'm like, yeah, yes, I know I can do this in my sleep. Right. And
Right.
and I got home and I'm like, is this a test from the universe? Right. And I start like second guessing myself, instead of like, and I sat with it. And then I was telling my husband about it. And he's like, well, what does this mean for your coaching stuff? Are you going to have to put that on pause? Because this could be like a 40-hour per week job. And I was like, well, I don't know. I got to sit with it for a little bit. I got to sit
Yeah.
and, like, where am I comfortable? Like, what do I want to charge to make it worth my time? And where am I willing to press pause and say, okay,
Mm-hmm.
here's where I got to pause. And I know I can generate leads. I know I can generate sales. So, like what feels good? What feels safe? What am I ready to do? What am I not ready to do? Um, and it was such an interesting like thought process to go through. Like
Mm-hmm.
how am I going to navigate this? Because I love the project, and it's kind of like a punch in the face to the right, because they had to hire outside the company instead of having like internal people
Yeah.
work on this. And I'm like, huh, I think yeah, I want to do this, right? Like I want this.
Yeah.
It will be easy money right now, an influx of cash when I need it the most. Yes, I need to go for this and now figure out a plan, refigure out quarter 4 because that's what this is turning into, which is fine, right? Like, and being able to pivot, but knowing that I can also come back, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
pivoting away with intent of coming back to my north.
But knowing that that's the plan allows you to prepare for that.
Right.
It allows you to set the steps in motion. And that's really what I think it's all about. It's about being strategic and
Mm-hmm.
tactical.
Yeah.
The tactics being the specific execution steps, strategy being the big picture, right? So I think that that's a really critical part of it, is that it's allowing you to have this opportunity to explore
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And
with a
on like,
safety net.
right. And on a spiritual level, right? Like I love the opportunity to explore and like kind of
Yeah.
just let myself go wherever the wind takes me, right? But always knowing that I have like a base to come back to, that I have a
Yes.
plan. Whereas before, prior to this, I didn't always have like a plan, right? Like things would derail me and I'd be like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm just going this way now, right? Instead of knowing that like, okay, I've got this plan and here's this thing. This looks interesting. I want to try it, but I always want to, right, like redirect back. Like, how can I, if I still want this thing, how am I going to let that detour like bring me back? So, it's a fascinating process, really.
It is. And I do love that you're asking yourself, what am I not willing to do? I
Mm-hmm.
think too often we really focus, because especially when we operate online, right now, there's a real toxic positivity vibe going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, just keep
Right.
swimming, like that whole
Literal.
story.
Yes. No, that's
But
so true. It's so true.
it's okay to say, I'm not ready for this.
Mm-hmm.
It's really okay. It's okay to
Right.
say, you know what? I'm not willing to work 40 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
So then you can find the workarounds. I'm not willing to work 40 hours a week. I am willing to do 24 hours consistently every week. I might
Right.
be willing to go up to 30. Okay. Now you know when I'm launching, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to do the 30. And on a regular week, I'm going to do the 24. Now, what am I doing with that 24?
Right.
How do I still get to my goal? And that allows you to cut out fluff, but it allows you to be so intentional. The focus changes things so you can be more effective and efficient with your time and still get your goal,
Right.
and not need to trample all over your own boundaries. How
Mm-hmm.
many of us got into entrepreneurship because frankly we want to spend more time with our kids?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
When I
Yeah.
started my store, I had just left a very lucrative career, and I took a huge pay cut because I wanted to be able to be with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember what happened. Something happened at daycare one time, and my daughter was like a year old, and I thought, what am I doing?
Right.
Somebody else is raising my kids,
Mm-hmm.
because I've always been a workaholic. And well, okay, so I was still a workaholic when I had, because I actually did three things, because I'm always a workaholic.
Yeah.
But at least while I was doing my store, because it was a kids imagination and activity store, I got to spend that time with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
found a way to make it work. But if you aren't able to see what those boundaries are, I think boundaries are just really important, and
Yeah.
respecting our own.
Mm-hmm.
We're always talking about respecting other people's boundaries. I think we need to do more respecting our own.
Absolutely. I think
So,
it starts with you, right? Like just like in
yeah.
the beginning of the episode here when you said focus inside, like what are your boundaries first and then you can build off of that, right? And then you
Yes.
can morph into whatever, right? Like navigate whatever it is, set those
Hmm.
boundaries, right? And with this job that I'm looking at, with this,
Yeah.
contract work, to be able to set those boundaries to say, I'm not willing to work 40 hours a week because I'm not, right? Like, and I've written that in my proposal saying, I'm willing to work up to 20 hours a week. This is my hourly rate. If you want to hire me for
Hmm.
the month, this is what it's going to be. And and really when I met with the person who was proposing this to me, he's like, "Well, I don't really have a budget So, whatever you want to charge. And I
Awesome.
was like,
So I think you might want to put me in touch with him because he really should have a budget in mind.
well, and that's what I said. I was like, are you sure you don't have a budget? And he's like, well, my manager approved whatever. He said it didn't matter. The cost
Oh,
didn't matter. And his manager is a friend of mine and my husband's. And I'm like,
okay.
cool. Glad to know he's got deep pockets, right? But also like that allowed me to really like step into my worth, right?
Yes.
Right? And to know my worth, especially when it's dealing with photography. I've taken photos for like 25 years now, right? Like I've owned a business, a photography business for 16 years. So I'm not like, I didn't start this yesterday. I've been around for a long, like people in the area know who I am. And
Yeah.
like now I'm charging my worth for that. Whereas,
Awesome.
when I started, even I would say the first 10 years of that business, I was like, oh yeah, I'll give you a discount because like I just really want the business. Whereas now it's like, well, yeah, okay. Here's the cost. Take it or leave it. If you want it, great. I'm here to help you. I am confident in this project. If you don't, good luck. Let me know if you still want my help. The offer is on the table. Good for 30 days, right? Like,
Yeah.
and having that boundary, being able to set that, step into my worth
Builds
makes me feel,
confidence.
yeah, it makes me feel so like empowered to show up.
Mm-hmm. It absolutely does.
Yeah.
It absolutely does. I've had similar situations. Not as a but as a potential employee. I've
Yeah,
had those situations. Hey,
sure.
tell me what you want to make. This is what I want to make.
Yeah.
Oh, that's more than we wanted to pay. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
They did come back with offers to meet that. But but having that knowing, so I many years ago took a negotiation skills course,
Hmm.
um, a certification, and they talk a lot about the BATNA, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. And so
Okay.
you go into these things and you already know what's my bottom line. What's the lowest I'm willing to go before I'll literally just get up and walk away from the table.
Right. Right.
Here's my ideal, but what's what's the best alternative to a negotiated agreement? At what point do you say to yourself, okay, I'm out?
Right.
And so that's where your boundaries come in this case.
Hmm.
That's where I know I'm worth this. And this
Right.
notion of this is what I charge. Oh, that's too high. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Your bet is I earn this. This is what it's worth.
Hmm.
Or we
Hmm.
don't work together.
Right.
And I think that there's something to be said for feeling that empowered that you feel you can stick to it. And I think we've all had those times, those moments where we do what you talked about.
Right.
What if before
Right.
they even ask for the discount, you're like throwing it, well, what do we give it to you for this?
Yep. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like you're already undercutting your, and I think that's something that we commonly do. And I think that really does stem from this self-worth, yes. But
Hmm.
I think that self-worth comes from the boundaries. I
Right.
think it comes from that too many times I stepped over them.
Right.
Listen, that somebody else did. It's that I stepped over them. And so we lose self-trust. And I
Hmm.
think that self-trust is such a critical element to making good decisions and sticking to our decisions and sticking to our boundaries.
Right.
And that honestly, now that I'm saying this, I'm realizing that's really that's my goal when I work with
Hmm.
clients
Yeah.
is to help them to develop that solid belief in what their next step is so that they can hold their boundaries.
Hmm. Right. And that's so important. It's so powerful, as especially today where I mean, I feel like everyone is an entrepreneur, which is great, but
I think it's because
also,
that's the space we're in.
well, probably.
Yeah.
That is true. Yeah. But to see so many entrepreneurs who don't know their worth and they've never
Yeah.
taken the time to figure that out, right? Like they've never taken the time to understand what does it take if I'm going to bring in $100,000 in a year? How many hours do I
Yes.
want to work? How many hours am I
Yeah.
willing to work? Like what is that hourly rate and how can I apply that to my coaching programs so that when
Mm-hmm.
I'm going into sales calls, I can
Mm-hmm.
confidently
I feel
say,
good about it.
right, yeah,
Yes.
I know that, okay, here I am earning this much. This is how much I charge for my time, right? And I know that the amount I'm charging is also compensating me for the overhead hours, the hours that are not charged, right?
And the years of experience and
That too.
investment of time, money, and energy that got me here to have this knowledge to be able to support you.
Right, right. Yes.
There's so much more that goes into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
So what is one business tip that you would tell someone who is starting their journey and or someone who feels kind of like stuck in the chaos of their business?
Okay. So my number one piece of advice in that case is focus on the fundamentals and be consistent. They always talk about how motivation uh, is not where you start, and they're absolutely right. Motivation is not where you start. Action is where you start. You create motivation through action.
Mm-hmm.
But the motivation comes when you start having small successes. So for somebody who's just starting out, for somebody who may be feeling a little bit stuck or a little bit in, analysis paralysis, or just go back to the fundamentals. There are 3 actions that you need to take every day in your business. Every day. You need to be able to basically create conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So whether you're putting up content and you're engaging in the comments, not saying love this, because that's not engaging.
Right.
That's a support, sure, that's support, but it actually does nothing to help you reach. So engaging, having real conversations with people, making offers.
Mm-hmm.
Making offers is another critical one. Um, oh my goodness, can you believe it? The third one just walked right out of my head. Danielle, I'm doing a workshop on this on Thursday, and I'm not only going to tell you what the 3 fundamentals are, but I'm actually going to help you to work out what the ratio is of each thing that you need to be able to do.
Okay.
So absolutely creating content, your audience. That was the third one. Sorry. Sorry. So building your network, that's one thing you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Creating conversation. So creating conversation can happen on a post where you're literally getting into a conversation in the comments that you want to be able to eventually kind of like move off into something private. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so that's the making off and then making offers. So whether
Yeah.
you're making that offer in DM or whether you're making that offer on your content, those are the 3 things.
Mm-hmm.
So and they need to be done in a ratio. And the
Mm-hmm.
ratio is in support of your goals. So you were talking about 100,000 people, or sorry,
Yeah.
$100,000.
Yeah.
$100,000, you can break that down and do bite size, bite size, bite size. You can get it right down to daily how many people,
Mm-hmm.
daily how many posts, daily how many conversations. You can do that. I prefer not to be that rigid. I prefer to set mins and maxes
Mm-hmm.
so that if I want to get to 100,000 people and I'm willing to put this many hours in, that means I can do this much engaging because you want it to be quality. Quality is so much more important than the quantity.
Right.
So as you start to increase your quality, you can reduce your quantity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, see how everything is in a directly proportional relationship with each other? That's where the data comes in.
Right.
But I can actually help you to calculate what that ratio is so that you can literally achieve your goal. You
Mm-hmm.
need to know what's my goal so that you can determine how many leads does that mean I need, right?
Right.
Because your leads, how many leads are coming into your system, how many coming through your pipeline will directly influence how many opportunities you have to make that offer.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm
Mm-hmm.
only having one sales, sorry, out of the fuzzy there, if I'm only having one sales conversation a week and I have a $2,500 offer and I only have a 50% close rate, I'm not getting to that 100,000.
Right. Right. And I
Because
think
I
I think that's
because I
something
need
most
80 people.
right. Well, and I think some people don't realize that, like
Yeah.
they've not ever done the math on that
Mhm.
and they've not ever
Yeah.
figured out like, oh, here's
Yeah.
this is how I get to that. And like
Yeah.
I've had clients who are like, oh, $100,000 seems terrifying to me. I don't think I'm ready for that. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, what are you ready for? Are you ready for
Yeah.
an extra $1,000 a month? Great. Let's figure that out. Right?
Yes.
An extra 12 grand a year? Amazing. Right? Like, even if it's
Mhm.
$1,000 a year, how can we get you to that like micro goal to get you stair stepping? If you do, like, if 100K is like one of those big dream things and you're like, I'm just not ready yet, right? We're like, how can we get there? How can you stair step your way there so it feels achievable, right? So the action isn't like,
That's a key.
right? Yeah, so you're not taking these huge action steps of like, I'm gonna bro market my way into 100 conversations per day, right? Like,
Sorry.
it works
Sorry,
for
I don't know if this is video or just audio, but that was a cute little movement there.
the little bro marketer, like, I'm just gonna message 100 people and
Yeah.
see who responds. Like,
You
for
might as
some
well throw
people,
spaghetti at a wall.
right? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. For I guess for some people it works. For me, 100 conversations a day,
Ooh,
woof.
exhausting.
Yeah, like
Right?
I can handle 5 to 10.
Right.
That's my sweet spot. 5 to 10 is good. And even some
And
days
this is
five feels like a lot.
right. But this is where those mins and maxes and boundaries come in.
Right.
I'm not, do you ever, I'm sure everybody gets those DMs. How would it feel to
Oh my
have an
God.
extra, what,
50
100
leads.
people in your,
Yeah,
oh, it would
150.
feel like a
Terrifying.
nightmare.
Yeah, terrifying.
It would
It's
feel like a
terrifying.
nightmare. So if that's a boundary for you, and you still want to make 100 grand, right? Well, then what do you need to do? There are other options. And if you really hate being on social media, there are other options. And how are you maximizing your referrals to help you get there? And so
Right.
there's so many ways. There's so many ways to get to that magic number, whatever your magic number is. My
Mm-hmm.
client last week, her magic number is 2,000 a month. That's what she wants to make. And I felt so bad the way she said, well, I only want 2,000 a month. I'm like,
Oh,
beautiful,
yeah.
beautiful. And she's like, oh, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's absolutely okay. What's your goal? It's your goal. It's not my goal. It's your
Right.
goal.
Yeah.
What is yours? And now let's figure out what the steps are, what the ratio is to get you there. And
Mm-hmm.
how about if you have anxiety?
Right.
Or how about if you have ADHD,
Yes. Yeah.
right? Now somebody says to you, well, you let me give you a strict routine, and your brain goes, ah!
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For
Forget it. I'm
sure.
not doing any of it. So if
Right.
you've got this flex plan built in, like, the
Mm-hmm.
thing about people with ADHD, they're like, I'll just delay that till tomorrow. I
Yeah.
don't feel like it today. I'm not in the mood. Oh, forget it. It's too overwhelming. They get to Saturday, they think they've got a deadline. They're like, shit, I got to get it all done. Oh, sorry, I just
Yeah.
swore.
Oh, that's
Uh,
okay. Yeah. No, but that's true, right?
but
Like
it gives them that flex.
right. Yeah. And for me, part of my reason to leave corporate, I
Yes,
quit my boss. Like,
that's
number
it.
one, I quit my boss.
So did I.
But
I
number
quit her too.
two, right? Like, number two, it was one of those like, I don't like the rigidity of having to show up here for 8 hours a day and,
Yes.
I don't know, make someone else happy. Like, that did not sit well with me. So, like,
Yep.
I literally got pushed to the point of like no return, had a bad review, and literally the next day put in my 2 weeks notice. And
I,
my boss was like, it's the middle of December. What are you
oh,
doing?
well,
And I was
I'm
like,
leaving.
you want me to leave now? Because I will leave right now. My stuff is packed. I've got a box under my desk ready to go. I've been ready to go for months now. So, you want me to leave now or in 2 weeks? And he was like,
Most people quit their boss, not their job. It's
right.
not usually, it's the boss that they quit. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's funny though.
Yeah.
Mine
So,
was similar. Mine was a spur of the moment. It
yeah.
literally was. I had had the conversation with my husband earlier in the week. I had been on a stress leave.
Mm-hmm.
I was running a medical company during the pandemic,
Okay.
and I told you I took the emotional wellness of my team
Mm-hmm.
very seriously.
Yeah.
Ooh, that really created a lot of chaos in our organization, and
Yeah.
um, differences of opinion about how the company should be run between
Mm-hmm.
myself and the owner, who spent 6 months of the year in Brazil.
Oh,
and the other 6 months of the year in Spain.
yeah.
And anyway, long story short, I was on a stress leave, and when I came back, her bullying became significantly worse. And I went, you know what? I don't need to do this.
Right.
You know what?
Right.
I quit.
Yeah.
Her reaction was the same. Wait, what?
Yeah.
You know,
Like you're doing what? No, you can't. What? You are the
yeah.
backbone of this group. You cannot quit. Like,
But that's why I left though, was this notion of exactly what you started to touch on is I work my butt off.
mm-hmm,
And I'd rather work my butt off for me, for my success
mm-hmm,
than for somebody else's. And I
right.
think that's why a lot of entrepreneurs get into it. They did quit a boss and they were
Mm-hmm,
like, no one's ever treated me like that again.
right.
I think that
Right.
happens in a lot of cases. And we all want that work-life balance. We all want to be able to create that beautiful life. And that will be at different monetary levels for each of us.
Mm-hmm,
And I think it's just so vital that we can do that. I would never want somebody to feel like I am forced to go back to that,
right. Right.
because now it's a whole new mindset problem, right? You
Mm-hmm,
just got through these mindset challenges. You just got out of employee mindset to get into entrepreneur mindset. Now you got to go back. Oh, that
right.
would suck.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
ways around it. There's ways to make your way work. There's
Mm-hmm,
always ways to make your way work.
mm-hmm.
It's a
Yeah.
matter of figuring out what it is and not listening to. I liken Facebook to a Turkish bazaar
Yeah.
with all of the vendors,
Yes.
screaming at you from the sidelines, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. Mine's the best. Oh, look at this, pure gold. Oh, hand sewn, blah, blah, like all of this.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. It
But it
is.
is.
Yeah. And
And
that's
that
what
can be
like
really hard to shut out.
that's what promote posts are for me. It's like, look at my thing, look at my thing, look at my thing. And I'm like, there are better ways.
Yeah.
When you're ready, like, let's
Correct.
talk about that. All right. So my
I like your
last
questions.
good. Yay, I'm
Yeah,
glad. So
I love I love your question posts. Anyway, keep
my
going.
last question for you is if you were a kitchen utensil or gadget, what would you be and why?
Oh, I would be the KitchenAid Pro stand mixer, obviously.
I knew it.
Why? Because it's multifunctional, because it
Mhm.
has so many attachments. You can literally do everything you need to do in your kitchen with that
Mhm.
stand mixer. By the way, my husband got me that I think it was for Christmas. I think it was our second year together, maybe, or I'd mentioned it once that I'd
Yeah.
wanted it since I was 18. And lo and behold, I think I started to cry after I finished jumping up and down. Or maybe I cried first and then jumped up and down.
Right.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
I had wanted it for 35 years. And that's what I would be, because it has flexibility. It allows you to do multiple things in the kitchen with one
Mhm.
tool.
Yeah.
That's
I love that. I love that so much. Well, thank you so much for being on the
Thank you.
podcast.
You
Tell
made
everyone,
my first
yay.
experience
I'm
awesome.
so
Thank you.
glad. I'm so glad. So tell everyone where they can connect with you, how they can connect, where they should go. Just let everyone know.
The easiest way to connect with me is literally on Facebook, Danielle Wilson, or you can connect with my business page, The Growth Alchemist.
Okay.
I do also have a blog. I have a website. The website itself, though, is really more around, here's my offer, here's my email list.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a proper website. Um, my blog is a great way to consume en masse my content. My YouTube channel would be another way. That one is more videos, and that one is for startups, for sales and marketing, specifically
Awesome.
sales and marketing for startups. But Facebook is the easiest way to get in touch with me. Of course, I'll leave my email with you as well.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
you
for sure.
can.
And I'll link everything in the show notes. So if you're curious, if you want to connect with Danielle, I highly suggest it. I highly suggest consuming some of her content. I love it. And I'm so glad you love my questions, because that, for me, like asking those questions, I'm always like, ooh, what kind of attitudes are people in today? Right? Like, what kind of answers am
Yeah.
I going to get today? I love it. And for me, it creates so many conversations and so many
Yes.
interesting conversations. So when you were talking about, right, like building your network, creating conversations, making offers, like me asking those questions has been the way for me to network and create content or create engagement and create
Yeah.
conversations with potential customers. It's been so amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Wow. What a great interview. Thank you so much for showing up here on the Chaos to Clarity podcast. Again, my name is Maggie. I'm so excited to connect with you. You can find all of the information, all of the links below in the show notes for today's interview. And I hope you have the best day ever.